Hey everyone, I'm Billy.
And I'm Kamraun. Welcome to the HorseFrog podcast, home of your two favorite professional digressors and the creators of the Malazan Brotherhood.
Today we'll be discussing Book 6, Chapter 18 of Gardens of the Moon, a novel set in the Malazan universe. Sorry, let's try that again. a novel. Okay. A novel in the Malazan Book of the Fallen. Is that as far back as I needed to go for you to edit?
You know what? I like the way you said it the first time.
You're going to keep the whole thing, aren't you? Okay, that's fine. So, I love you. This is part one of our coverage of this chapter.
This podcast series is intended to be a companion to reading or listening to the books set in the Malazan universe. It is not a book review and is most definitely not intended to be a replacement to reading the books. Both Billy and I believe this to be the best fantasy story ever written and want to share our love of the series with you.
We will be covering the events in the books in a linear fashion. There will be spoilers for those of you that have not read the books. We will try not to spoil anything prior to us covering that portion of the respective book. But knowing me and my big mouth, I'm sure to spoil something for someone. So in advance, I'm sorry. Not like Exxon after creating a minor environmental disaster in Alaska kind of sorry, but I mean, I'm deeply, sincerely, I'm sorry.
So it's Alaska this time, not the Gulf?
Yes. And it wasn't a catastrophe. I put minor and disaster. I'm being lazy this week, sorry.
No, I mean, geographically, it's changed locations. So
Yes, it has. Yes, it has.
Is it going to be an oil spill every week?
I don't know. I'm going to have to find something good to...
Oh, man. Okay.
Maybe I'll make...
You got the Bakersfield one you could do. That's an on-land disaster. I don't know who was responsible for that. But
we could do all kinds... It doesn't have to be disasters. I could do like maybe, like Catholic disasters, Christian disasters. I don't know. I cover all kinds of weird grounds. Like we could apologize for the Crusades or something. I don't know.
Deus Volt. All right. A quick warning, today's episode absolutely contains violence. It is not appropriate for children.
Our show is... Okay, sorry. Our show is listener supported, and if you'd like to support us, we'd really appreciate that. You can do that by visiting our Patreon link at our website, HorseFrogProductions.com.
Also, we would really like to hear from you. Send any feedback or comments to contact@HorseFrogProductions.com. All right, Chapter 18, Part 1. The chapter begins with a poem titled The Conspiracy by someone named Blind Gallon. This is a name that will pop back up later in the series. The poem itself, nothing really stuck out to me as important at this point. It just kind of added a little bit of flavor to what's going on currently in the books.
Dude, I got a question, bro. I didn't. Does he get that from Herbert in Dune? Because I always love that in Dune. Yeah, the little snippets of poems or whatever it is. Dune had some poems or some like conversation, little snippets at the beginning of it. I'm reminded of that, and I know he likes Dune. So
I don't know where he got it from because it's not just that, right? There's been a number of different authors that do stuff like that, I think.
Are they? I'm not really aware. I say that. I'm probably going to be slapped in the face. Listeners, if y'all can remind us of some, again, reach out to us at contact@horsefrogproductions.com. Give us a list. Make us feel shamed.
Just giving the audience homework.
Yeah. Well, hey, it involves shaming us. They ought to enjoy that. In this day and age where no one can be ashamed anymore, I will take the shame.
Nice. We're taken to the Bridge Burners. Whiskey Jack and Kalam are in the middle of a conversation. Whiskey Jack asked if Kalam was up for something, and Kalam said, "Not much choice, is there?" and returned to sharpening his long knives. Whiskey Jack's features were drawn and haggard from a lack of sleep. He looked around the room. Quick Ben sat in a corner with his eyes closed, clutching the scrap from Sari's bedroll. Fiddler and Hedge sat at a table cleaning and inspecting the pieces of their massive arbalest, preparing for a battle. Whiskey Jack was in agreement that a battle was in the near future. Many hunters sought them. They were getting closer by the hour. Of those hunters, it was the Tist Andy he feared the most.
Yeah, I fear them the most too, man. There's some bad dudes.
Kalam and Quick Ben, they know firsthand what was going on after that roof battle with the Tist Andy assassin mages.
Hey, another question though. The arbalest, is that the first reference to one of their lobbers?
I'm assuming this is different than the other ones we've heard of because it's referred to as their massive arbalest as opposed to just the standard one, because the only other one that we've heard of was the goat foot arbalest that Kalam assembled right before that battle we were just talking about, right?
I'm assuming that was a smaller affair too.
That's a smaller one, more assassin-centric.
Yeah.
shooting quarrels, and this massive one, we'll get into what it's shooting later.
Okay. Yeah.
Because we haven't really even discussed the different size of munitions available yet.
That's true.
They'll tell us more about those later.
Okay.
Wait, they did go into it a little bit, didn't they? Because they're talking about what they buried at each intersection, right?
Yeah, I guess they talked about the cussers and some.
So
they
the cussers,
mentioned a couple.
they're like grapefruit size, roughly,
Yeah.
right? And this arbalest is designed to shoot those over a long distance.
Yeah. Well, that's why my question about the lobber, because I think that I'm getting ahead of myself in book things, but that's not a big spoiler. I mean, that's just what they call those things, I think, later on, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The lobbers. That's why I'm just. I know they're specially designed for that stuff.
Yeah, because it's a highly volatile
Yeah.
thing that they're shooting, right? And if too
Yeah.
much force is exerted on it during the acceleration of it,
Yeah.
it's going to explode in your face.
Right in your face, yeah. It's like, that's not good. I wouldn't want it to be that guy. It's like, that's a tough job. We got to dial that in.
Right. Trotz leaned against a wall with his arms crossed. Mallet slept in a cot against a wall, and his snores were loud. Whiskey Jack returned his attention to Kalam and asked, "It's a long shot, isn't it?" Kalam nodded and said, "No reason for the man to keep showing himself. They got burned the last time. I'll try the inn again. If anything, someone will mark me and the guild will come. If I can get a word in before they kill me, there's a chance. It's not much," Whiskey Jack said, "but it'll have to do. You've got tomorrow. If we draw a blank, we detonate the intersections. Do damage. Hurt them." Fiddler and Hedge grinned in anticipation. The madmen are ready to play with their toys.
I know it. Man, when these fellas get excited, you should probably turn around and get as far away as possible from those guys.
Yes, I'm in agreement.
Yeah. Something's blowing up.
Mm-hmm. Quick Ben let out a hiss of frustration. Everyone turned to look at him. He told them that he couldn't locate Sorry. Kalam cursed and thrust his knives into their scabbards. Whiskey Jack asked what that meant. Quick Ben told him that most likely she was dead. There was no way the rope could hide from him as long as he was possessing Sorry. Fiddler proposed that the rope may have quit the game when he found out Quick Ben knew of the possession. Quick Ben made a face and said, "The rope isn't scared of us, Fiddler. Come back to Earth. If anything, he'd be coming down on us. Shadowthrone must have told him by now who I am, or rather, who I once was. It's not the rope's business, but Shadowthrone might insist. Gods don't like being cheated, especially being cheated twice."
Wow.
Yeah. "I don't understand this, Sergeant. I'm stumped." Whiskey Jack asked if they should abandon Sorry. Quickman nodded and said, "Might as well. We were all wishing we were wrong about her, but what Sorry did had nothing to do with being human. And, as far as I'm concerned, I'm glad of that." Kalam said, "I'd hate to think that evil was real, that it existed with a face as plain as the next man's. I know, Whiskey Jack, you've got your reasons for wanting it that way." Quick Ben moved closer to Whiskey Jack, his gaze soft. He said, "Keeps you sane every time you order somebody to die. We all know about that, Sergeant, and we'd be the last to suggest there's some other way that maybe you haven't thought of yet." Whiskey Jack growled, "Well, I'm glad to hear it." He looked around the room and saw that Mallet had awoken and was watching him as well. Whiskey Jack asked, "Anybody else got something to say?" Fiddler says, "I have." Whiskey Jack glowered at him and he ducked. He said, "Well, you asked, didn't you?" Whiskey Jack said, "Out with it then." Fiddler straightened in his seat and cleared his throat. He was about to begin. Hedge poked him in the ribs. It's like brothers, these two.
I know. I love those guys.
Fiddler gave Hedge a menacing scowl, then said, "It's like this, Sergeant. We've seen a lot of our friends die, right? And maybe we didn't have to give the orders, so maybe you think it's easier for us. But I don't think so. You see, to us those people were living, breathing. They were friends. When they die, it hurts. But you go around telling yourself that the only way to keep from going mad is to take all that away from them, so you don't have to think about it, so you don't have to feel anything when they die. But, damn, when you take away everybody else's humanity, you take away your own. And that'll drive you mad as sure as anything. It's that hurt we feel that makes us keep going, Sergeant. And maybe we're not getting anywhere, but at least we're not running away from anything." What a speech from Fiddler. we're beginning to get a little glimpse into his values. Up to this point, he's largely been portrayed as a mad sapper, kind of a funny character. But in many ways, Fiddler is what I call the heart of the series from an emotional perspective. And he has a way of hitting you right in the heart sometimes.
Yeah, he does. And I love this little soliloquy here. And again, part of what makes the characters so real is hearing their feelings. And I'm a huge epic fantasy guy, and I still haven't found more relatable characters in a fantasy story. His people are really real. Very human. His humans are very human. They identify with us.
Mm-hmm.
They're not just like these guys that they don't have any inner dialogue. I love that you feel that these people are very solid individuals.
For all their flaws,
yeah,
there's a lot of relatable traits to many of them.
I think due to the flaws is a big part of it.
Oh, yeah, true. After Fiddler spoke, there was silence in the room. Hedge punched Fiddler on the arm and said, "I'll be damned. You got a brain in there after all. I guess I've been wrong about you all these years." Fiddler said, "Yeah, right." He looked to Mallet and asked, "And who is it who's burned his hair off so many times he's got to wear some ugly leather cap all the time, eh?" Mallet laughed, but the room was still tense. All of them looked back to Whiskey Jack. Whiskey Jack looked to each man in the squad and studied them. He saw caring and an open offer of friendship he'd spent years suppressing. He'd pushed them away, and stubborn bastards that they kept coming back. Internally, he acknowledged that Sari hadn't been human, and his conviction that all she'd done was within the possibilities of humanity rested on uncertain ground. But the ground didn't collapse. He'd seen too much to develop a sudden faith in his view of human history. There was no optimism to chase away the memories of the horrors he had lived through. He admitted to himself that there came a time that some denials lost their function, and his foolishness became obvious. He recognized that he was among friends. The admission was difficult, and he was already impatient with it. He growled, "All right, enough with the flapping lips. We've got work to do." "Corporal?" Kalam replied. "Sergeant?" Whiskey Jack said, "Get yourself ready. You've got the daylight hours to reestablish contact with the Assassin's Guild. Meanwhile, I want everyone else to lay out their weapons and give them a good cleaning. Repairs to armor. There will be an inspection, and if I find a single damn thing I don't like, there will be Hood's heel coming down. Understood?" Mallet grinned and said, "We hear ya." What a wholesome scene.
Absolutely.
It's great to see the squad prying Whiskey Jack's heart open.
Yeah.
They love him and see his suffering through him pushing them away. And I'm glad Whiskey Jack was able to open himself up to them. Also, it's great to see him go back into sergeant mode and get them ready for battle,
Oh, and yes, absolutely. And what a great group. I love how the bridge burners always look out for their own.
They can see his suffering.
They're just propping him. Yes, yeah, and just share it with them, and that that heals him a lot more than they realize. And we'll see the effects of that here a little bit later on, I believe, of how much he's to Whiskey Jack. There's something we both agree on later on, I believe. Maybe not in this part, but
right. Call and Perrin were making a slow pace on their way back to Darujistan. Despite the pace, Call's wound had opened half a dozen times on the journey. They had found a way for him to sit with all his weight on the uninjured leg that allowed him to ride without the wound opening again. His entire leg from the hip down was a brown color. Clots of drying blood were in the leg plates and knee guards of his armor. As the leg had swelled, they had been forced to slice the leather padding beneath the plate. Sounds really bad. Really bad.
Yeah, like gangrene or sepsis, I guess that's what that is, that kind of infection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel real bad for Call.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It just seems like in such a bad spot on the hip right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trying to get it to stay closed.
Yeah. I don't know how riding a horse you can keep any part of your leg immobile. You can keep it immobile, but it's still going to be jostled every step.
Right. Perrin recognized the foul mood Call was in, and despite their bond, they hadn't exchanged many words on the ride. They didn't get much help at Catlin Bridge since the surgeon there had been sleeping off a bad night. Clean bandages had been donated, and they were sent on their way. Jamet's Worry Road contained little traffic, even with the walls of Darujistan in sight. As they approached Worrytown, Call came out of his semi-conscious state and asked if they were approaching Worry Gate. His face was deathly white. Perrin said he thought so, given he had seen a road sign indicating they were on Worry Road. Perrin asked if they would be permitted to pass the gate and if the guards would call for a surgeon. Call shook his head and said, "Take me on through. Phoenix Inn. Take me to the Phoenix Inn." His head sagged again. Perrin agreed, but thought it would be a surprise if the guards let him pass. He would need a story to tell them regarding how Call had been wounded. Perrin muttered, "I hope there's someone in this Phoenix Inn with a healer's touch." He looked to the city's gates. Having seen enough of the city to understand why the Empress wanted the city so badly, he said, "Darujistan, my, but you are a wonder, aren't you?" Compared to Sari's reaction, that's quite the difference, isn't it?
Oh, I know it. And Perrin's a city slicker too, and he's even impressed.
Yes. He grew up in Unta, right?
Yeah.
Which is the capital of the empire now.
Yeah, it's pretty. I'm imagining quite a bustling place.
It is.
And
yeah.
so, yeah, I would imagine for him to think that says something.
Yeah. This story about Sari being unimpressed, it kind of spurred a memory of mine.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, I have a friend who, for whatever reason, he likes to troll my brother. Okay. And so we went to visit my brother one time, and we were all going skiing. And the first day we got there, we went out to eat. And after we were done, my brother was asking my friend, "Hey, did you enjoy it?" And my friend will never give my brother any ounce of, something that would make him feel good. So he's like, "It was okay. I've had better." Just like my brother just got so salty, man. Yeah. He's like, "Yeah." It just reminded me of kind of Sari's reaction a little bit, just like
Absolutely. It's like,
I've seen better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's too funny. I just love. Is your brother younger or older?
He's 3 years younger than me.
Oh, there you go. That's why it galls him. Okay. So, yeah, I got you. I'm the younger brother, so yeah, I get it.
Yeah, my friend's a little bit older, but he's got the personality that he just likes to mess with people like that.
No, I get that. I do too.
Funny. Rallick desperately clung to the handholds he had taken while climbing Kroll's belfry. His limbs trembled with exhaustion. He was hidden in the shadows on this side of the structure. The other parts of the belfry were lit by the rising sun. He was running out of time. Taking the stairs would have been suicide, as Ocelot would have set traps to cover his back. If Ocelot was indeed up there, Rallick reminded himself. This was an assumption, after all. If Ocelot was somewhere else, Call was in trouble. Rallick didn't know if Call had arrived at the gate yet. He paused to rest and glanced up. He had 10 feet to go. He was so tired it took everything he had to simply cling to the handholds he had found. The silent approach was beyond him given his lack of energy. He relied on Ocelot's concentration eastward to mask any noise he made while climbing the final stretch on the west side of the tower. He drew some deep breaths, then continued his climb. These types of climbs always freak me out. How people get the confidence to climb without any fall-arresting equipment is beyond me.
Oh, I know it. I know. I just have you seen the movie Solo about Alex Honnold climbing?
Free Solo?
Free Solo.
Yeah.
Free Solo. Mm-hmm. So I've seen this twice now, but the second time I watched it with my folks, and they and I both become visibly nervous when we watch that dude climb, even knowing how that ends. It does nothing to ease the anxiety of watching him do that with no ropes.
Right.
I don't know why that's still, because it's just like, man, you are seeing a guy in real time who could die anytime.
Yeah.
And I love that guy and I love people like that, but no, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, just the utter confidence, I guess, the ability to put the fears in a compartment.
Yeah.
And just be able to perform. It's really impressive.
It is. It is very impressive.
Perrin and Call arrived at the Worrytown gate. Perrin ignored the gawking passers-by and their questions. Instead, he focused on the 2 guards at the gate. They had spotted him and Call, and they waited for them to arrive at the gate. Perrin motioned and conveyed their intention to pass through. One of the guards nodded while the other walked alongside Perrin's horse and said, "Your friend needs a surgeon. If you wait just inside, we can have one here in 5 minutes." Perrin declined the offer and said, "We need to find the Phoenix Inn. I'm from the north, never been here before. The man said the Phoenix Inn, so that's where I'm going to take him." The guard commented that he'd be surprised if they made it that far, but they could at least provide them an escort to the inn. As they passed through the shadow of the gate, another guard saw them and cried out. Perrin held his breath as the guard approached. The man said, "I know him. He's Call Jammin, of House Jammin. I served under him. What happened?" The other guard said, "I thought Call died a few years back."
Is Call kin to Ben? Ben Jammin? Sorry. I apologize. Wow, that was really bad.
Wow.
Sorry. Oh, I apologize, folks. That was dreadful. If it makes you laugh, it's worth it, I guess.
What can I do but laugh, Billy?
Oh, at least it beat a girl like, it beats that. So.
The new guard said, "Screw the writs. I know what I know, Vildron. This is Call, all right." Perrin told the new guard the last thing Call had told him was to take him to the Phoenix Inn. The new guard nodded and said, "Let's do it right, though." He turned to the other guard and said, "I'll take the grief if there's any, Vildron. Get me the wagon. It's still hitched up from this morning, right?" The new guard smiled at Perrin and said, "Thanks for getting him here. Some of us in the city still got eyes. And damn what the highbrows whisper. We'll put him in the back of the wagon. Less jarring that way." Perrin relaxed and thanked the soldier. He took the chance to glance around and get a better look at the city now that they were inside the walls. He saw Krull's temple, noting that it was on the summit of a humped hill that was overgrown with weeds and gnarled trees. The temple itself looked as if it had been abandoned long ago. He saw a flash of movement as his eyes observed the belfry. Quick thing here before we go to the next section. Mm-hmm. The fact that this guard knows Call and thinks he's so honorable and wants to continue to take care of him, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I was really moved by that as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really does. And it's one of those small little things. This chapter has a couple of these small little things that are not small at all. They're said in a small way, but they're quite telling. And that's one right there. You know, the fact that these guards recognize him and we're like, dude, we need to get a wagon to get this group together and to provide this escort because of the concern for this man. You know, that's pretty cool. I agree.
Yeah, definitely. Rallick cautiously raised his head over the platform's edge and almost gasped aloud when he saw it was empty. Then he remembered Ocelot may be using sorcery. He held his breath as he strained one last time and drew himself flat onto the platform. His arms were leaden with exhaustion. As soon as he began to gather his feet, the platform shimmered, and he saw Ocelot lying in front of him with his crossbow cocked, taking aim at something below. Rallick moved immediately and unsheathed his knives. His exhaustion betrayed him, and his boots scuffed the stone. Ocelot spun onto his back and swung the crossbow around. His face twisted into a mask of fear and rage. Then he unleashed his quarrel. Rallick braced for impact, but there was none. Instead, a flash of red before his chest momentarily blinded him, but no impact came. He blinked and looked down. The quarrel had vanished. He instantly recognized the quarrel had been magic, then propelled himself forward. Ocelot swore and dropped the crossbow and reached for his knife. Rallick landed on him and grunted in pain. Rallick drove the dagger in his right hand toward Ocelot's chest. It scraped against the chainmail beneath his shirt. Rallick noted Ocelot had learned something from the other night during the Tist-Andy ambush. The chainmail was one of Rallick's precautions and had come to haunt him now. Rallick angled his left dagger upward into Ocelot's armpit, and it bit flesh and continued on until the tip emerged from the shoulder in front of Rallick's face. Ouch.
Ouch.
That kind of wound right there is bad, real close to an artery.
Yes. Well, you know, that's kind of old school. If it was from the top, that's what they teach the commandos back in the World War II days. That's what they taught them.
No, it's from the bottom.
Berets. Well, I know he's from the bottom, but some of the guys in the Green Beret, they stick it between that thing and your collarbone there. Grab you from behind, put your hand over your mouth and drop it in there on your heart side, swipe twice, and you've got the arteries above the heart usually with that swipe. Yeah. So anything on that side of that chest, you're going to hit close to the heart, anything. It's right by the heart, too close to the heart, actually.
Yeah. Blood blossomed from the wound. One of Ocelot's knives skittered across the flagstones. Ocelot grabbed Rallick's braid and gave a savage yank, pulling his head around so he could attempt to bite Rallick's neck. Rallick jammed a knee into Ocelot's crotch. Ocelot grabbed the braid again, this time closer to the end. Rallick heard a snick of metal and tried to roll to his right but failed. Ocelot punched with his wounded right arm, still able to muster enough force for the wrist blade to penetrate the chain links of Rallick's mail. An Assassin's Creed wrist blade?
That's what I'm guessing here.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. Another thing that is impressive to me is just the fact that I like how these guys fight. I mean, Ocelot is even wounded to death, mortally wounded, is still going for the kill. Got to appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. The first feeling that I had until the killing blow in this fight was that this was very reminiscent of that knife fight in Saving Private Ryan.
It's been so long since I've seen that. I need to see that
It's
again. But
really
I remember
brutal to watch that one. It's the one where they're in the upstairs floor of that house, and I think it was the Jewish soldier, and the German soldier gets on top of him, and he like very slowly stabs him through the chest.
Yeah.
That was it was a really hard scene to watch.
Yeah, it's one of those.
That's like one of the few scenes I remember from that movie. That's how bad it affected me.
I remember that the sticky bomb. It's about.
Yeah. The one on the side of the tank.
Yeah. The first one fails and blows the guy to bits, and the other one.
Yeah.
Pretty nasty.
Relic felt fire in his torso from the wound. Ocelot jerked the blade free and drew back for another stab. Relic reached back and sliced his blade, freeing himself from Ocelot's grip and sacrificing his beautiful hair in the process.
Right? Dude.
He was able to roll onto his side and withdrew his left blade as he did so. Ocelot slashed wildly at his face. He missed by inches. Relic used all his remaining strength as he slammed his knife into Ocelot's stomach. The blade sank to the hilt. Ocelot doubled up as he curled around the embedded weapon. Relic lurched forward and hammered the other dagger into Ocelot's forehead. That's the brutal finish I'm talking about, and that's more along the lines of something you see in John Wick.
Oh, yeah. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Pretty wild.
Oh, great stuff there, man. Great stuff.
Mm-hmm. And the nice thing about it is, I don't like seeing Relic get hurt, but it was high stakes on both sides.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's a fight to the death, man.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And especially as much, in a way, I kind of forget about this fight sometimes in my absolute love of Ralik Nam. And this is one of the reasons I love Ralik Nam is this fight here. And you realize he's more evenly matched than I give him credit for.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the other guy tended to lean on sorcery, he still knew how to fight with real old school stuff anyhow. So it's like, I got to appreciate it. They were pretty evenly matched. It could have gone either way.
Yeah. Ralik lay unmoving and wondered at the absence of pain. The plan would fall to Murillo now, and Call would be avenged. Murillo could handle it. He had no choice. Ocelot's body seemed to grow heavier on him now, even though blood was leaking from it. Ralik muttered, "I'd always believed I was this man's match." He disentangled himself from the still twitching body and rolled onto his back. He had hoped to see sky one last time. Instead, he saw the underside of the belfry's roof with all the nesting bats underneath. He thought he could see beady eyes as they glittered above him. More blood for Krull today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's a tough break for Ralik, too, taking that wound in the torso.
Well, I know. And he's, like I said, he's one of those guys I love so much. I think I like Ralik like you like Kalam.
Oh, wow. That's a heavy statement right there, Billy.
It's a very heavy statement. Out of the, there's several great assassins in this series. And, I like a lot of them pretty equally because when they all have the proper time, I like them all equally at that point when I'm reading about them.
Mm.
There's a couple fellows like, some, you know what I'm talking about. I don't want to spoil too much, but Deadhouse Gates, we got one. And, and that guy, I mean, there's a bunch of these guys that you come to like, and you like them equally because they're the hero of that moment. Erikson makes you care about who he puts on the page. I think that's just the charm of it. Everybody he puts on the page, I tend to care about. Whether you like them or not, it's a different story.
Right.
But care about them. I do kind of care about them. So
I think for me, all the stuff that Kalam gets up to, it's just on another higher level than the stuff that Ralik does. And I guess it's that superhero nature of what Kalam does that really just takes him to that next level for me. I mean, I like Ralik fine. I think he's a really good character. It's just he's more grounded compared to Kalam.
We've been watching this show, so I'm going to use the reference. He's the Daredevil. He's the street level guy. Kalam is more Avengers level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good. Good call there.
So
does that make Turban or the Kingpin?
It can. Yes, it can. If he were better at it, he would. I would. But Kingpin did wind up in jail. But yeah, I agree. Yes, he's our Kingpin for the moment.
Okay.
Our aspiring Kingpin. Let's put it like that. Our aspiring Kingpin.
Mm-hmm.
At least he thinks he is. Is that better than aspiring?
He thinks he's the Kingpin?
He thinks he's the Kingpin.
Yeah, this is probably more accurate.
Yeah.
Perrin saw no other sign of movement in the belfry, and he turned to see Vildron approach as he led a wagon drawn by 2 horses. Perrin dismounted to lend the guard a hand. He wondered how much longer Call could last. He thought, if that was me, I'd be dead by now. It's probably speaking through experience there.
Yeah, you're right. He's been there, done that.
Yeah. Perrin growled, after all this, you damn well better live. Perrin helped the guard get Call off his horse and into the bed of the wagon. Surratt groaned and rolled onto her back. She'd been about to make her move on Arilta, and after she had taken her place, there would be only one person guarding the coin bearer. They would walk right into Surratt's trap. Instead, Surratt opened her eyes to find the mid-morning sun overhead. She found her daggers neatly placed beside her on the rooftop, and there was a dull ache in the back of her head. The world spun, then settled. She found herself bewildered and angry. Whoever had subdued her had been good enough to sneak up on a Tist-Andi assassin mage.
Wow.
I'm not sure who it was. Do you have any idea?
Well, I know it wasn't Turbinor. It wasn't Kingpin wannabe. Sorry. We know who the Kingpin is here, isn't it? It's more like Baruch, wouldn't it? But he's benevolent, thank God. Okay, sorry. Is it the rope?
No, he's out of the game right now.
He's just out of the game. Okay.
Definitively.
Well, I know there'll be speculation coming up whether about its Ophan, but what about Vorkin?
Maybe. What about the eel?
Well, could the eel do this?
I don't know.
Personally?
I don't know. I just wanted to
Nobody
say
does. That's the problem. That's the problem is no one knows.
No one knows what's going on.
Yeah. I've never really questioned that before. I've never thought about it. He could be responsible for it.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The eel has a long reach.
The arrangement of the weapons seemed to indicate there had been an intent to embarrass her more than anything. She recognized that leaving her here in broad daylight with her weapons beside her hinted of a subtle and cunning sense of humor, and she wondered if it had been Ophan. It was possible, though gods rarely acted so directly, since they preferred unwitting mortal agents to do their bidding. The only certainty was that she had missed her opportunity to kill the coin-bearer, at least for another day. Next time she vowed to be prepared to encounter her foes. She opened her Kurald Ghislaine warren, and the air around her shimmered with sorcery. Then she was gone.
Well, mention of the sense of humor makes me wonder about. Yeah, I'm really. Yeah, no, about the eel.
The eel.
The eel.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'll have to ask Mr. Erikson that.
You better start compiling your list. And we're going to have to do some reps on other interviews before we get to Mr. Erikson.
Please.
That's not going to be our first interview.
Oh, please. Please. We need to interview, like we have a friend that wants us to read, we have a mutual friend that wants us to read another friend of his book. And I said, maybe if we get around to it in about 10 years, we can interview this fellow.
Right.
I'm sorry. It's more like 5 years. I apologize.
Okay. Mies crouched in the attic at the Phoenix Inn. She watched Crocus and Absalar as they slept at opposite ends of the room. Mies thought their flight across the rooftops from Mammoth's tenement to the Phoenix Inn had been too easy, almost as if someone had cleared the way for them. Arilta had reported that no one on the streets had followed them. Mies wondered if this was more than the eel's brilliance at work. She thought maybe, but more likely, she was putting too much weight on the unease she felt in her spine. Still, she felt hidden eyes upon them. That was impossible, she noted, looking around the attic. Arilta knocked on the trapdoor from below and called up to Mies. Mies acknowledged her, and Arilta climbed up into the attic. Arilta told Mies that things were getting strange downstairs. A wagon led by a city guard and another man carrying Call had just pulled up. He was nearly dead from a sword wound to the leg. They put him in Kruppa's room, and Sulti had run off to find a cutter for him. Mies asked about the other man, and Arilta told her that he looked good enough for a roll on the mat. He had told her that Call had woken up long enough to tell him to bring him to the Phoenix Inn. The man was now downstairs at the bar, eating enough for 3 men.
These gals strike me as just the type to be able to take some poor fellow like that she wants to take for a roll in the hay. Against his will, doesn't she?
I mean, they just borrow Scurv's club. And
Yeah.
just,
I think these women, we talked about them being like that shot putter. It's like these gals probably big enough to just take a fella.
yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Small enough, just grab him. Hey, let's go, fella.
Mies asked if he was a foreigner, and Arilta told her he speaks Daru as if he was a native. He had told her that he was from the north. She noted he looked like a soldier. Mies said, "Any word from the eel yet?" Arilta said, "We keep the lad here for now." Mies asked about the girl and was told she was to stay as well. Mies sighed and mentioned Crocus wouldn't like being cooped up in the attic. Arilta glanced over at Crocus and wondered if he was truly asleep. She said they had no choice since guards had showed up at Mammoth's tenement right after they had left. They got damn close to catching him. She then rubbed dust from the window and said, "Sometimes I swear I see someone or maybe something, then I blink and it's gone." That's the second mention of something watching, and the third if you count the weird situation with Surratt.
Yeah, that is. And I know that we're going to find out. We have to, because there's something, I think there's something, anyhow. I can't remember. I can't remember anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of at the limits of what I can remember of this book, except for the outcome of certain things.
Yeah, the major plot things or anything that stuck out to us that just stuck with us.
Right. Which this chapter has a couple of those moments that stick with me, but it's like, but yeah, this kind of certain things like that, I just can't remember who would be watching them.
Right. Mies stood up. Her bones creaked. She said, "Know what you mean. I think even the eel's beginning to sweat. Life's heating up, friend. Rolling times ahead."
Yeah, Georgistan is a sweaty town. I think it's
yes.
so that could very well just be that may add. I thought it was going to be against him, but it's like, no, dadgummit, that actually makes it more.
Yeah. That's great.
Makes more of a point. That's
sweaty town. You start calling Georgistan sweaty town. Nice.
But at least it's a dry kind of heat. You know, I'm sorry.
It's right next to a lake. I'm pretty sure it's humid.
Yeah, it is next to the lake. That's true.
Yeah.
Dadgummit. I was always kind of thinking of Arabian Nights. We talked about that, the kind of 1001 Arabian Nights. But I don't I think of dry, dusty for some reason. But I forget about the lake being over there.
Mm-hmm.
It just always reminds it of Bill Paxton on Aliens, on the second Alien movie, when they're down in the hive. Because when they're talking about it's just hot down here, he's like, "Yeah, but it's a dry kind of," and he's a Texas boy. So I just love those lines from Texas boys. So.
Yeah. The humidity gets you here, man.
Yes, it does. It's nasty. That's why you need to move to the hill country. The hill country's dry.
Dry.
No. It's. I live in what's called the semi-arid region of the state. It's closer to desert than it is anything here.
Okay. What's the average humidity there?
It's about 20.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
I'm telling you, an hour after sunset, it's 10 degrees cooler on the hottest day of the year here.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just that night. I mean, we can have a 100-degree day and a 70-something degree night, and within like 2 hours, it's like you could be sitting on your porch chilling.
Okay,
and liking it.
Sounds like HorseFrog Productions live studio is going to be in Kerrville, Texas.
Yeah. It does, dude. We're next to all these lovely little small towns here that everyone wants to come to anyhow, and California it up. So you might as well get down on the ground floor.
Right.
California 2.0. Sorry, I don't say that like I'm embracing and happy about it either.
Mm-hmm. Arilta nodded grimly and said, "Roll on, roll on." For standout moments, Fiddler's speech to Whiskey Jack. That was just hits you right in the heart.
Yeah, right in the feel goods, and it's very heartwarming and sincere, and I love that Fiddler. He's one of my fave, if not fave, humans generally in the series. But here, I forget that in this first book that he's not a big primetime player. He's just kind of supporting cast in this first episode.
Yeah, and this is the first time we really get to see him come out of that mad sapper shell that they've been painting for him, right?
Yes.
Whiskey Jack finally admitting the rest of the bridge burners were his friends. Then his subsequent return to the command structure almost immediately. I like that.
But at least his head is on right now.
Mm-hmm.
And Whiskey Jack is the man.
Mm-hmm. He was taking everything on for himself.
Yes.
The burden of it.
They helped him share that a little bit. I think that helped him a lot. This is what I was referring to earlier. I think this helped heal him up a little bit from the loss at Pale.
Yes.
Help kind of establish him back on his feet too.
Mm-hmm. The fight between Rallick and Ocelot was quick but brutal, and it was cool to see the effects of the Odotarl during the fight.
Oh, I love that too. I love how the area effect revealed Ocelot laying out in the open thinking, no one will ever see me. And and it just pops up there. It's like he's just laying there. If he hadn't made that noise, it would have just been a real quick stab in the back of the head.
Oh, man. That would have been nasty.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got any final thoughts before we drop off tonight?
No, great episode, man. Great time.
Yeah, good job tonight. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
See you next time.
We thank you all for joining us today.
Again, we really like to thank you for taking the time to be with us, and we've had a really great time talking about the topic today.
If you would like to support our show, you can find us at horsefrogproductions.com, where you can find our Patreon link. Depending on the platform you're listening from, it may also be in the episode description.
And if you'd like to contact us through email, it's at contact@horsefrogproductions.com.